Hello and welcome to week 4 of season 2 of the Zwift Racing League. Last week we saw some superb racing on the climbs in Innsbruck in Austria, and this week we've got the rolling luscious green hills of Harrogate in Yorkshire to contend with. Now alongside me for the virtual ride as ever, Hannah Walker.
Hello, welcome, great to be back.
And the legend that is Dave Towell.
Thanks, Matt, good to be with you.
We'll be talking to you guys in a bit more detail a bit later on. But before we look at what's in store for our races tonight in Harrogate, let's have a little glance back at a really attritional, challenging race on the climbs of Innsbruck last week. It's a women's race, Innsbruck, for the KOM after party. It is Louise Huback, Lethbridge up the front. Who is going to take this? Is so close. Cecilia Hansen from Shayna Paulus. Only 41 riders in that group. There was a big split on the leg snapper.
It's a big gap to the group behind, 20 seconds. The flurry of power-ups here, gradient 8%, and this is where it really starts to bite.
Cole Cloth of Vision E Racing, and Wright is there as well. Great riding there by Jamelia Wright of the Onion Racing team. Curie now taking the lead for I Race Like a Girl. Tracy now in front. Jamelia Wright, 2 from 2 there. We now have a group of 34 riders in the front coming into the climb. This climb has really started to rip this field apart. Curie goes again. Big acceleration by Curie here. It's Kulczynski who comes straight back up, the American, with another surge going clear. Some power-ups left in the tank. Curie looks like she's going to take her second win. Catherine Curie takes the win for I Race Like a Girl. Joss Loudon in second for Drops the Cold.
A great battle there between her, Loudon and Kulczynski.
An absolute thriller. Well, we really were treated to some absolutely superb racing last week. We're heading towards the halfway point, and this is the situation at the top of the series points ranking. It is Hino with 3 from 3, so a big lead for them with 60 points. Canyon Esports, as consistent as ever, in second place with 55. Rounding out the podium so far in the season 2, I Race Like a Girl. Equal third, in fact, with Team 2024. They both have 52 points. Then we have Insured, powered by Pedal Power, Cryo RDT, Team Swedish Zwifters in 7 with 38. Saris and the Pros Closet, they're equal in 8th with 35 points, with the Onion Race Team, of course, moving up from the community division. Then rounding out our top 10 at the end of round 3 are the KISS Racing Team. Now let's have a little look, courtesy of Hannah, of what's in store for our riders tonight.
Well, the riders will take on 3 laps of the 2019 UCI Worlds course in Harrogate, 41.6 kilometres. After the start, the riders turn right, and then we've got that really long section down Otley Road. And as we go into the Queen of the Mountain, they hit that stone bridge, they turn left, and it's 1.2 kilometres uphill to the Queen of the Mountain point, 5.5% average gradient. The riders will then descend, and you'll take on the intermediate sprint, only 300 metres long. It's short and punchy, and then the riders descend again towards the finish. The riders will pass the Zwift Draft House on the left-hand side, and as they start to climb up into the straight to the finish, it's going to be one of those where the riders will have to time their open to perfection, not go too early, and not underestimate how hard and challenging that finish is.
Well, it is a brutal course, and we've raced this course before, but we've had 2 laps. This time it's 3. So, Hannah, just pull a couple of teams out, a couple of names for us you think are going to shine on the course we have today.
Well, when we've raced on this course previously, Cecilia Hansen of Hino has taken the win. Louise Huback was second, but I think a rider for today and who has had it dialed throughout this season 2 of the Zwift Racing League, Catherine Curie. She's a stage winner at the Tour de l'Ord, a World Cup winner on the road, former USA road race champion as well. So I do think the way that she's had this nailed for I Race Like a Girl, she's got it going to be one to watch tonight.
She certainly is. She is a real revelation. And my little tip, I'm going to go for Kristen Kulczynski of Team 2024. A rider that's been knocking on the door, likes the attritional course, and there's that one of my favourite pictures, the PIP picture-in-picture of our riders. Of course, the riders are pretty much underway. They've had a nice warm-up, some interesting pain caves there. But without further ado, the racing is about to commence. Remember, it's a long one today as well, 41.4 kilometres. So it's going to be a tough one. They're on the back of the circuit, just going up the Otley Road. In the early stages of this race, there's no real opportunity to settle in, because as you can see, Hannah, on the top right, this is a 3% drag. It really is hard straight away, isn't it? No real chance to kind of bed in and sit in the wheels properly.
There's not. Equally, to add to that, it's actually quite a fast section as well. So you're climbing, it's a point on the course where instantly your legs start to be sapped of energy. You're trying to move up. We've got the little the dipper in the middle of the Otley Road, fast downhill. If you've not got the pressure on, you could start to lose the wheels, go out the back of the group if you haven't applied some pressure and some power as the gradient goes back up. But as we start to look through the teams, ATP Racing Venom, we have Anelle Radford, Angela Roberts, Cassie Nelson, Jennifer Santoyo and Regina Legg.
Good lineup from the ATP Racing Venom team, and we were actually going through before we came on air. We always come in there a bit early, have a bit of a chat, and that actually is a nice kit. Plain front, but a nice bit of design on the back. I think we should actually start to give awards out for our favourite kit without being too controversial. But 1.4k is already done, still heading up the Otley Road. And I think today, Hannah, when you look at this course, we know it's an attritional course. We know it's a course where there's lots of opportunities for riders to attack and try something. As we look at Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank, very, very strong team indeed. Real depth and strength there. Leah Dixon, Maddie Ward, Emma Langley, new rider for the team moving across from Canyon SRAM, Tanya Erath, of course, a Zwift Academy woman in the past, and then Kristen Faulkner. This is a team, actually, well, we've got this team on the screen, Tipco Silicon Valley. Okay, they're sitting in 13th at the moment, but this you'd think would be a course that would suit them. Maybe not so much Tanya, it's maybe a bit hilly, but potentially Leah Dixon could do well on this course.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just about learning how each other ride. Some of the riders new to the team this year, it's getting that cohesion between you all, learning how you'll ride, being, coming together as a team and just finding your feet. They're a wild card into the Zwift Racing League Season 2, so they didn't race Season 1, and I think week by week they're learning from each of the races, and I think, as you say, a couple of these riders have already raced on this course in previous years. Tanya Erath being one of those riders who raced in the Yorkshire Grand Prix back in 2019. So I think it's just week by week getting better.
It certainly is. This is this little brow, and it looks like that's Steph Clutterbuck. Oh, sorry, Courtney Nelson of Ensured, powered by Pedal Power, just in the white jersey going over the top of the hill. The road for the first time just dipping down as we look at the dominant team of Hino Racing. Look at that. Louise Huback, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, Huback and Hansen, of course, second and third in the recent World Esports Championships that took place in December. We've already got a couple of riders who are just slipping out the back. Remember, it's 3 laps of this course here today. And it is a points race. Just a reminder, this season we've got 8 races for you, 3 team time trials, 5 points race. There, of course, is the glory of winning and crossing line in first place to put on your Palmares, but it's all about accumulating as many points as you can. And there are 2 opportunities to score points out on the circuit, at the Queen of the Mountains and the sprint each lap. And then, of course, extra points for the top 30 riders as they cross the line. And I think today, Hannah, we talked about the fact there's lots of opportunities to attack. But when you look at the amount of time they're going to be on Zwift today, on this course, it's going to be over an hour. I think it's going to be 59 minutes, 1 hour, 3 minutes. It's quite a long time for a Zwift race. So endurance and pacing yourself on a course like this is going to really come into play as we look at Tanya Erath.
It certainly is. I think also finding the points on the course where you can rest up a little bit and have those micro rests, and not having to be on the gas the whole time around the course, but trying to take as much recovery as possible. So if you can try and find your way on this section on Otley Road just to surf the wheels, make the most of the draft of the riders in front of you, it's important to have those rests. You can't be full gas for the whole of the 41 kilometers, and I think because you're going to take on that hard Queen of the Mountains 3 times, 1.2 kilometers in length each of the Queen of the Mountains, each of the climbs. It's the Queen of the Mountain comes before the sprint, so trying to score those points as well. I think it's going to split early on, and we've already started to see riders and a split in the back of the group.
Yep, it's a few riders already finding it quite hard. The road just kicks up here. This is when they swing right, still 3%. And the road just starts to roll. This is essentially the furthest part of the circuit, and it's rolling. We drop down. Actually, coming back the other direction, there's a very, very steep climb indeed. So talking about micro rest, there's an opportunity here for the riders to get into that super tuck, save a little bit of time. And I think the accumulation of, there are lots of moments on this course that provide an opportunity to attack. But equally, as you were just saying there, Hannah, there are opportunities on this course as well, albeit short, to have that little bit of a rest, get yourself in a good position, get into a freewheel. Even if you're just freewheeling on Zwift for around 5 to 10 seconds, that's enough really to give yourself a nice bit of a nice proper rest, and add those up on the course, especially given the distance they've got today. That could be the difference between winning and losing, is how you kind of measure your effort and rest as much as you can.
It is, and we have a section on the Otley Road, which we've just gone through, where the riders can freewheel, get into that aero tuck. We've got another one coming up again. So it's just, it's knowledge is power as well, that if these riders know the course well, they've ridden it before, they've done the recon, and they know, and you can see the riders now getting into that aero tuck. Shayna Powless there on screen, taking an opportunity to freewheel, and right on time, making sure she's back on the gas, putting some power down to stay in a very, very nice position there, just sitting comfortably within the top 12 or 13 or so at the front there.
Yep, so always worthwhile. You can tell the riders, all of these riders at this level now, racing in the Premier Division, all of these riders know how to ride on Zwift. But it's as we get more and more racing, these riders get more and more experience, the kind of fine-tuning nature, trying to find something different, trying to accelerate, rest at different kinds of times. That's what we're going to see. These riders are becoming so good at this that the longer you spend on the platform, the more you race, quite simply, the better you become. Especially course knowledge as well. And this is a course where, as we said before, lots of opportunities to rest, recover, and also attack. And we're on to another one of these long drags on this circuit as we look at Eilidh Gardner there in her pain cave, tapping out a nice rhythm there. Just over 220 watts there. Beats per minute though, it's high, isn't it? It just shows already. She's hovering about 119. She did a great, she wasn't quite top 10 the other week, but she was actually very consistent in attacking. But you'd have thought, Eilidh Gardner on a good day, this could be a course that does suit her, because it is a really selective course, isn't it?
It is, and her heart rate there just shows it hasn't been an easy start. Only 6.4 kilometres into today's race, and it just shows we're not even onto a part of the course where we have the steep gradients, or we've actually made any efforts to go for the points, the intermediate points yet. But riders are at or near their threshold.
They certainly are. We've actually got at the moment, if my calculations are correct, we've still got about 56 riders in this front group, but we've already lost about 25 riders just on that first approach, that long drag up Otley Road. A lot of riders immediately would have been put into their threshold, making it very, very uncomfortable indeed. Of course, when the road rises up, given the speed they were doing, there's still a little bit of benefit from the draft, but not exactly the same as you get on the flat by any stretch of the imagination. We're now dropping down, another opportunity for riders to get into a super tuck. We hit that little series of switchbacks, and then we come on to the first, the only categorised climb on this course, as we look at a very, very experienced campaigner indeed. One of the women in red, as it were, Vicky Whitelaw, so consistent. Of course, 3 wins out of 3 so far for Hino Racing, but yet to win a points race in terms of the individual winner across the line. All those, of course, have gone to Catherine Curie. And I wouldn't say, Hannah, it's difficult to see past Catherine Curie today, but the other teams, the other riders who are going to be at the fore today, they've got to start thinking about how they can try and get rid of it and work as a unit, and maybe try and send people up the road rather than just this erosion selection process.
Yeah, definitely, Matt. I think both of her individual wins that she's had in Richmond and then last week in Innsbruck, she's just been able to go with all the attacks that other riders have made, trying to put her under pressure. She's always had the right power up as well, as we've already started the Queen of the Mountain, the first time on the of today. Just see the effort. Christy Tracy, the effort and out the saddle, just trying to stay in the top 20. So you already started to see riders struggling to stay on the pace. 7% gradient here on this climb.
Yeah, this is the steepest part of the climb. Does actually come at the bottom. The first kind of 500 or 600 meters evens out and then kicks up a little bit before the road swings right. But that's a real insight there. Tracy out of the saddle, the American there, riding, of course, for Saris and the Pros Closet, who sit equal 8th. She's putting out, I mean, she's obviously a light rider, but still putting out close to 400 watts and actually losing ground within this group. It just shows how high the standard is here. Lieberman is on the front at the moment, the American. She's got not too far away her teammate Christian Kulczynski. My tip for today: Lou Bates, Vicky Whitelaw, Cecilia Hansen, Alice Lethbridge up there from Hino, all of the main protagonists who love this sort of attritional racing at or near the front. But look at the stats here. 7.5 watts a kilo, still 33 kilometres to go. And Hubak and Kulczynski have really taken this race already by the scruff of the neck. And this group really starting to thin out now, Hannah.
It is, and Hubak, a rider who has previously been second on this course in the Yorkshire Grand Prix, just wanting to try and stretch things out, try and put a lot of pressure on some of these riders that they aren't able to stay with the group. And just like that, Lethbridge comes round Kulczynski, I think, just nabbed maximum points on the line there.
I think it was. That was a good little move. You could just see her coach as well. I think that was Hubak's coach just in there. All of these riders will have team managers, teammates as well. Lethbridge from Kulczynski and Hubak. So double point score there for Hino. A good little manoeuvre there by Kulczynski. And this has actually split the group. These riders are now 3 seconds in front. So Lethbridge, Kulczynski and Hubak, they're in front. The chase is being led at the moment by Stephanie Sidlick, the American riding for the Canyon Esports team. Beth McIver is there as well from Scotland, from Crow RDT. They're chasing behind. But already in the early stages, I think this could be a real shape of things to come, Han. It's such a tough course. Look at the damage that has been caused. There's only about 15 riders in there. We saw Catherine Curry in that front group, the winner, of course, of round 1 and round 3. Lethbridge in there as well. So big damage being caused. I mean, not even only just about halfway round lap number 1.
Great move from Lethbridge to try and force that pace, working well with Kulczynski, and just see those two riders there, Kulczynski and Lethbridge, how easy they made it look then to go from the back of this very reduced group. They were able to just surf their way through the wheels to the front without making any effort. They're just using the free speed as they turn left, and Loudon up towards the front, Bates as well. But I think that just shows... Sorry, Mike.
No, sorry there, Hannah. No, it just, once we come off that descent, the road kicks up again. And this is another, it's only a short little climb, another uncategorized climb. But this is another nasty little uphill section. Just at the bottom, it kicks up at 10%, then drags. Loudon in the mix there. But there's a big split now. There's only 25 riders in this front group. And with Leah Dixon of Team Tipco Silicon Valley trying to lead the chase behind. And then riders in little groups at 6s and 7s spread all over the road here in the centre of Harrogate. This really is a tough course. Beth McIver of Cryo RDT. They had 2 riders in this front group. So Cryo RDT looking very good at the moment. Loudon there for drops. Again, looking comfortable. 240 watts there, still having to push 4.5 watts a kilo. A few power-ups being dropped here. And at this point in the race, still a fair old distance way to go. We've got a sprint coming up very shortly indeed. Expect to see a few power-ups. Remember, it's only aero power-up, the draft power-up, and the featherweight power-up that we'll see in these races. And it looks as if it's Beth McIver who's rolled off the front, or is it Lieberman? No, it's Lieberman there from 2024 who just took the sprint there by the looks of things. So we're kicking out 8 watts a kilo. So solos across the line there. Lieberman takes the win from Alice Lethbridge, and Catherine Curie for I Race Like a Girl, last week's winner, of course, in 3rd. So a very difficult race so far. And I can only see this group whittling down. It's going to be hard to get back in the mix now.
It's going to be very hard. And I think that first sprint that we had on as we just went through, there wasn't really any challenge. I think the pace on the Queen of the Mountain was so hot that other riders are just still recovering, actually not wanting to try and take any points at this moment. They just want to stay in this group, cement themselves, It's very, very reduced, and I think as the laps go on, it is just going to be a whittling down process. Very, very attritional as we see the ride-on league, the ride-on scoreboard there. King with 160, Erath with 156. So bit of a battle between those two riders.
Yeah, we'd just like to, anybody watching live, of course, we encourage you to get on your Zwift Companion app, give these riders the ride on. Your favourite riders, just the riders you like, or anybody really, if you're feeling generous, whack them a ride on. It's a real boost to their morale. But King has a slender lead of only 6 ride-ons in front of Tanya Erath there, who has been the queen of the ride-ons so far. And this little group, very, very select group of riders now. We have 19 riders in this front group. Sorry, 20 riders, should I say. And then the gap to the next group on the road is a massive 24 seconds. That's some big, big damage as we look at the figure of Stephanie Sidlick, the American, riding for Canyon Esports. She's got a couple of teammates in that group. Mary Wilkinson is there, Scary Mary, who we know. We talked about her before we came on air. She's done well on this course before, and I don't think this season it's fair to say we've seen the best of Mary Wilkinson, but it says to me she's on far better form tonight because she's made it into this front group.
Yeah, I think for the previous races that we've seen her in, as you say, not on the form that we've known her to be in, and to be there in a lot of the races, whether that be a race finishing in a bunch sprint or on the climbs. But as you say, to make the selection after that hard effort up the Queen of the Mountain and then into that intermediate sprint, good to see Wilkinson is coming back into form, and she has performed well on this course in previous years. Took third in the Yorkshire Grand Prix, lives not too far away from this course in real life, but got some teammates in the group for company. They've lost Bexy Dew. She's the rider who is in that chasing group 28 seconds in arrears.
Well, it's the gap is it did hold steady for a while. It's now gone out to, well, we've got 24 seconds there, so they're having to work hard behind some very, very good riders. I mean, I thought I'd see this race break up early on, but maybe not to the extent that it's done. Very, very selective, and a punishing tempo was set straight from the off, really unsettling riders, and no real opportunity for riders struggling and riding at or near the threshold to get back in contact. That little point you raised about nobody really going for the sprint, it's because they were kind of on the edge, and actually investing yourself in a sprint when you don't really need to. It's all about kind of saving energy as best as you can. There was no point to cross the line that time, although I think one of the riders maybe thought there was. But 1 lap down now, 14 kilometres under the wheel, still a rather long 27 Ks to go, 19 minutes of racing, and we have a real select group. Most of the big hitters, to coin a phrase that we use in cycling, are in this front group. All of the main favourites. Caroline Williams leading at the moment. Steph Clutterbuck there, the Brit for Crow RDT. She could be dangerous today. Joss Loudon is there from Drops Lacole. I think she's the only rider from Drops. We mentioned Mary Wilkinson. We've got Vicky Whitelaw, Cecilia Hansen and Huback, all from Hino Racing. Monica Keller there from Insured, powered by Pedal Power. Lou Bates from No Pins, and Alice Lethbridge as well. So a real mix of riders in this front group as we look at Monali Keller from Insured. So looking at the jerseys here, Canyon Esports very well represented, but anything Canyon Esports can do, Hino can almost do better. It's they kind of match themselves so well, but I'm wondering what the tactic's going to be now. I'm wondering, what do you think, Hannah? What would you be telling if you were the DS now, the DS of Hino or 2024 or even Canyon? Would you say, okay, just rest up, or would you say just keep the gas on, let's whittle this down even further? What would be your plan here?
On this section of road, as we come back onto Otley Road, if I was the sports director, to tell them to take a rest here, just recover from the efforts that have been made on the first lap. It was very, very intense and a quick first lap indeed. But yeah, rest up, recover, wait for that Queen of the Mountain. And I think any of those riders who are good climbers, you want to try and save as much energy as possible to try and make a huge breakaway, potentially on the last time up the Queen of the Mountain. Try and split things up, because that's apart from the climb up towards the finish, it's the last opportunity to split the group if you are a climber, and you don't want to rely too much on your sprint and your punchy sprint skills. Let's try and go for a long one. Put those the sprinters, or what remain of the sprinters in this group, put them under pressure, stop them from getting back. But I think this is, on Otley Road, a point where the riders can recover. Still, though, a gradient of 4%, Matt.
Yep, and still a very good pace is being set here. And just looking at the group behind now, it was 24 seconds. They were holding steady, but now they are dropping away at quite a rapid rate. The 21st rider on the road at the moment is Emma Langley from Team Tipco Silicon Valley at 39 seconds now. So it does look like the winner of a round 4. Week 4 is going to come up from somebody in this group as we look at the full lineup of Canyon Esports. They've got 2 riders in this group. Mary Wilkinson is there. Bexy Dew, Stephanie Sidlick, Kirsten Pohl and Cécile Lejeune. The French woman, it is Christian Pohl and Mary Wilkinson who are there for the women in that rather fetching kit. Still one of my favourite kits out on the game. But all 5 riders, again, incredibly, their kit's so consistent. They have a stacked squad. Louise Huback, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, Alice Lethbridge and Caroline Williams. What more can you say about Hino? 5 riders, so they basically got 25% of this front group. Very, very impressive. They just do not miss a beat.
It's incredible, but I think that that comes down to their team tactics from the get-go before the race gets underway. Their sports director as well, keeping that communication aspect going throughout the race, letting them know where their opponents are, the rivals are, at what point on the course to start to make your efforts. But I think for Hino, as you say, they don't miss a beat, whether that be in the team time trial on a sprint stage or a hilly stage like today. I think just the way that they ride the race, where they position themselves in the peloton, and another opportunity to use this downhill section, get into that super tuck, another micro rest for the riders.
Yeah, it's a real fast section, but it doesn't take long. It's only a couple of metres downhill. I kind of liken this particular part of the course, Hannah, to almost like a roller coaster as we look at Team at 2024. They have 2 riders in this front group, but there's the full lineup. Shayna Paulus, she's actually missed this group, unfortunately, as has the Colombian Natalia Franco, a Zwift Academy finalist, of course. But the 2 riders that have made it, Rachel Lieberman on the right there and Kristin Kulczynski, who's been so consistent this season. And the other rider there is Naomi de Pennington from Great Britain. So 2024 have 2 riders in the front group. They are highlighted at the moment there, Kulczynski and Lieberman. What can they do? Can they get that win that they so desperately want? They're going to have to do something very, very special, because arguably the strongest rider on paper from the results so far is Catherine Curry. She's the only rider from our race like a girl in that pink jersey. 2 wins from 2 as Clutterbuck moves to the front here. This is almost like the calm before the storm. It's still on a tough part of the course, but no real attacks here, no surges from anybody else. It's almost as if they've kind of, okay, we've got part 1 over, we've got a real selection. It's just about sitting in the wheels, kind of getting an account of who's in this front group and then formulating a set of tactics for the second part of the race now.
Yeah, just take a look at who's in the front group, assess what the tactic will be going forward. I think for 2024, it's good news that only 1 rider from I Race Like a Girl has made it into the front group. So it does mean at the moment they are joint 3rd on 52 points with I Race Like a Girl. So for 2024, if Kulczynski and Lieberman can score well, it should help them cement that 3rd place overall. And could they even leapfrog Canyon Esports? Canyon Esports having a very consistent run. They were 2nd overall in race 1. They were 3rd on both race 2 and race 3.
Yep, very, very consistent indeed. Hino with 60 points at the moment. Just to follow on from your look at the league table, Canyon Esports with 5 points, but all it takes is one bad night. But the way that Hino are racing at the moment with 5 riders in the front, without one of predicting too much, if it stays like this, And even if they all finish towards the back of that group, they're still going to amass so many points because they've got that many riders. And it's worth reiterating that this is a points race. There's still a lot of glory from winning one of these races outright as an individual, because Catherine Curry has done that. But the Zwift Racing League is all about the accumulation of points and looking at riders a little bit further down the ranking, because it's points that mean prizes and putting your team at the top of affairs. So, and Hainau again have put themselves in such a good position as we look at the stats of Curry on this little downhill section here, backing off 142 watts for the winner of the first two rounds here. And everybody there pretty much to a woman now in the Super Tuck. Little opportunity to save some energy before the road kicks up. Because it's hardly a bit of fit on this course. We've not really talked about that. It's either up or down, isn't it? I mean, I can't remember hardly a bit of kind of, if you got a measure out and try to measure a flat part of this course, I don't think you could, because the profile is like an alligator tooth profile, isn't it?
It's like you say, it's either up or it's down, and a very hard attritional course. Even on the downhill sections, you're reaching 65, 66, 67 kilometers per hour, and those points, you can't, for a moment pause your concentration. You've got to be on, because as soon as you get out of that Super Tuck and the road starts to kick up again, you don't want to find yourself having to push such a huge gear or get those watts back up to stay in the group. So, as you say, a very, very hard course. But so I think that's just, in general, the roads of Yorkshire, very grippy, very hard, attritional.
Yeah, definitely. But beautiful as well, that's the thing. I mean, we're both yourself and myself, and of course Dave, who will be joining us shortly for the men's race. We've all actually been here in real life. I mean, many of you had the pleasure to ride around these roads. I think it was a wonderfully creative course that the organisers put on for the World Championships. It's replicated here in Zwift, and I'm going to say it. It is, I think, probably my favourite course. I love riding in Rotopia. All of the other different courses on Zwift have a real charm, but I just feel at home on this course. I just love the up and down nature, and I love the fact that you can either go for an easy spin or you can really get stuck into some of those grippy short climbs. It's almost like a microcosm of everything that's good about Yorkshire roads to me.
It certainly is, and I think it also is such a nice course to ride because it brings back so many wonderful memories of the World Championships back in 2019, albeit a bit of a wet week, but it was such a brilliant World Championships. And I think the course lends itself to brilliant racing as well, because of the nature of the gradients and how the teams have to play the tactics.
Yep, they certainly do. Just trying to look at the mix here. Of course, we've already mentioned 5 riders from Team Hainau. We've got 2 from 2024, Kuczynski and Lieberman. We've got a representative from the KRT KISS Racing Team, who sit 10th overall on the general classification. That's Eiley Gardner, the Brit. 2 from Insured, powered by Pedal Power, have infiltrated, well, not so much infiltrated, managed to hang on to this front group, because there was nothing tactical really about this move. It was a real natural selection. All the cream rose to the top. Steph Clutterbuck and Beth McIver. Also there, we've got 2 riders from Insured in the white jersey as well. There's confirmation of the gap between this front group containing Louise Huback of Hainau and 4 of her teammates, of course, to the powerless group behind. 50 seconds, and it's actually moving out at the moment. I think 51 seconds is the latest as they start the climb again. We're coming towards the halfway point of this race very, very shortly. And of course, the finish of this race will take us to the exact halfway point on the series. Who is going to take the win today from a team perspective and, of course, from an individual perspective? A lot of power-ups being used here. The one you want on the climb, of course, is the featherweight power-up. Reduces your weight by 10%. And the steepest part of this climb has already gone. And I tell you what, they're making light work of this climb. They're moving up it so quickly. Becky Seal there, a great shot of the rider in yellow from TFC, pushing out 6 watts a kilo at half distance. So Becky Seal there, elbows out, leaning on it, just shows how much effort. I mean, there's no real attacks being made here, Hannah. This is just the effort that you need to put out just to hold on to this group.
it just shows how difficult it is, because when you look at the numbers and see the avatars racing up this climb, as you say, making light work of it, but when you see the pain that the riders are going through, the burning sensations in the legs and in the lungs, Seal just trying to hold on to the wheel of is it Eiley Gardner just in front of her there, and a little gap opening up. Can she just close that before the gradient ramps up? She does. She gets round. And it starts to bunch up together again. Lieberman was the rider from 2024 who really strung things out at the bottom of the climb.
And she certainly did on that steepest part. If you're a pure climber, one of the lighter riders, and you have a good power to weight ratio, if you want to put anybody under pressure, the steepest part of the climb is the way to go. But of course, there's points on offer at the top of this Queen of the Mountains. The second ascent of this climb is Huback from Hino Racing. Just Loudon closing behind. They're using a featherweight power-up. Will Loudon, the only representative from Drops-le-Col, move past? He draws level with Huback, goes past. This is a good ride by Loudon, but is she going to be overtaken at the last by Cecilia Hansen coming up? Clutterbuck is there as well. Ooh, that's going to be close. But I think Loudon takes it from Hansen. Clutterbuck is in third. And as a result of that big effort, the group has thinned out a little bit. There's going to be a real fight to get back in contact. There is confirmation. Just Loudon takes the points for Drops. Clutterbuck is in second. And then Celia Hansen is in third place. So 3, 2 and 1 for the Queen of the Mountains. The second ascent of that climb. And there's a couple of riders that have been distanced. I think this group is going to whittle down even further. But look at that. A real demonstration of consistency. Hino Racing at this point have 7 points. 2024 have 5. Drops-le-Col with 3. Cryo RDT with 2. And rounding out the top 5 teams, I Race Like a Girl with 1 sole representative. She's really the out and out favourite. Catherine Curie. Pressure on her shoulders today, but Beth McIver is also in this group. Beth McIver got 2. She's got a teammate for company as the Cryo RDT. They're not a team that we talk too much about, but they're very, very consistent. And they're actually lying at the moment, Hannah, in 6th place overall. 2 riders in that front group. They're looking good.
I think this is a race tonight where they can turn it around. They scored 15 points in each race 1 and 2. Then they had a little dip last week, only scoring 12 with the overall team's total. As you say, 6th place overall with 42 points. But at the halfway point, I think, as the weeks go on, they've got tonight and then 4 more opportunities to try and move up that leaderboard. And I think as the riders start to find themselves, Clutterbuck and McIver present in this group, if they can try and score highly and get a good amount of points on the board, either in these intermediate sprints and Queen of the Mountains, but also score highly at the finish line, they could see themselves try to leapfrog Ensured, powered by Pedal Power, who were on 49. But I think it's just a case of chipping away at the overall total points in the series.
Indeed, well, they're just moving up. They're just the Royal Pump Room is off to the left, the Jubilee Gardens off to the left-hand side, and apparently this is actually Cornwall Road, one of the most poshest parts of England to live in, according to reports. Some lovely big manors, but it's the hotspot sprint coming up very, very shortly indeed, and we've seen a real flurry here of power-ups being used. Unsurprisingly, Huback is in the front, wants to score more points, and again, the rider that comes up behind looks like Lethbridge. Does Lethbridge just take that one? Yeah, Lethbridge from Huback. Clutterbuck in third place. Do you know what? I know I'm not taking any chances at all. They've got 5 riders in the front. Mathematically, they're in a great position, but they are showing absolutely no mercy and hoovering up these points out on the road as well. Lethbridge, Huback, Clutterbuck. What an impressive display. And they've gone clear too.
I was wondering, just before we started the Queen of the Mountain, how would Hino play this out now? They have the 5 in this front group of the 20 riders. As you say, they've got 25% of the makeup in this front group. Actually, if they score well on the finish line, they could still mop up and win the team overall on the night. But actually, not leaving anything to chance. They're racing each intermediate, trying to get those points on the board. Huback, after going through that intermediate sprint, again, making light work of it. 169 beats per minute. And the speed within this front group, 58 kilometres per hour. So they're not hanging around at all.
No, they are moving very, very quickly, and the group has been reduced. We've got 3 casualties. That big acceleration on the climb has seen off 3 riders. Annabelle Stoll, the Canadian from Saris and the Pros Closet. Becky Seal also got dropped, and Courtney Nelson from Insured, powered by Pedal Power, meaning we have 17 riders in this front group. The ratchet slowly being turned up, and the group is reduced just a little bit more as we just head through this lovely suburban area, lovely leafy centre of Harrogate. It really is a beautiful town. If you're ever across visiting England, it's right in the heart of our country, and it's a lovely, lovely place to visit. Of course, we had a wonderful time a couple of years ago. We had our Zwift Draft House not too far away from the finishing straight. Most of us at some point have visited Betty's tea rooms to sample some tea and some scones. Of course, scones means biscuit. It's actually a little cake that you can put jam and clotted cream on. It really is wonderful, but no chance of these riders having any snacks just at the moment. It's Christian Kulczynski maybe sensing there was a bit of an easing in the pace there, eager to go on the front. That's the Flamme Rouge. They've just gone past a kilometre to go. Of course, we still have 1 complete lap once we go through the finish, but that is the K to go board next time round. And it really is a complex finish, this one, isn't it? We talk about timing. We say it every week, timing in a sprint is crucial. But this climb in particular, it's really difficult to get right, isn't it, Hannah?
It's really tricky. And as you say, as we come up to 1 lap remaining of this race, this is the final chance for these riders to have a look at the run into the finish. Where are they going to start to open up their sprint? Where are they going to open up their effort? A flurry of lightweight power-ups there, all green feathers. But I think for these riders, you can just see in the background just the steepness at the start of that climb as they turn right onto the finishing straight. And it's all about timing. When will you use your power-up? When will you open up that sprint? I remember a couple of years ago in the Yorkshire Grand Prix, it was Louise Huback who opened up far too early. She went from the bottom of the climb in towards the finish, and Cecilia Hansen, gapped her a few seconds, but actually was able to come back because you just run out of gas, you run out of steam. If you use your power up too early as well, you could just get nipped on the line.
Well, this is an interesting little situation here. Yep, power up timing. I mean, the choice of power up as well. If you get a featherweight power up, do you go early on the climb to use it, or if you get an aero power up, do you use that a little bit later when the road flattens out? It's kind of because power ups make so much difference when you're accelerating. You've got to choose the right point to accelerate depending on the power up that you've got as well, and of course depending on what other people do. There's so many layers to it. It really is fascinating. But we've got Clutterbuck moving clear with Williams here. An interesting little move. They've only got a couple of seconds just off the front. They're just swinging right now back onto the long Otley Road, the straightest part of the circuit. But it was Kulczynski of Team 2024 who was taking no chances there, happy to bring things all back together. And we're into the final lap of this race, 13.3 kilometres to go. Are we going to see a group sprint? Are we going to see a rider try and attack here? Heino, we know, we've got 5 riders. The only team, of course, with a full complement of riders in this front group. And I'm wondering what we're going to see here. Are we going to see them send somebody off the front now? Because they're in a really dominant position. They've got a wealth of choices, haven't they?
They have. Do they send a rider off the front on the Queen of the Mountain? Then that forces the teams like Canyon Esports, I Race Like a Girl, 2024 to chase and bring them back. But then that gives the other opportunity that Heino can counterattack. Do they leave it to after the Queen of the Mountain, get everyone over when they're already in the red and the heart rate's high, they've got the lactate in the legs, and then to try and push and force a move, try and go for a long range attack, maybe with 2 or 3 kilometers remaining straight through that intermediate sprint perhaps. So they've got so many different maneuvers that they could deploy in this and tactics to use as we go into this final lap of the race.
I mean, looking at the composition, we know the team with the dominant hand basically And also not just numbers, they've got riders of all abilities. They've got riders who can finish well, riders that can climb, riders that can take a lot of punishment as well. What do the other teams try and do to try and split things up? Because they haven't. The only other team with any strength in number is Canyon Esports in that lovely purple and mauve kit. Mary Wilkinson is there, as you mentioned before, already third on this course in the past. Good to see Mary in this group, clearly feeling a lot better than she has so far this season. And she's got Stephanie Siddick and Kirsten Pohl. They'll be certainly having conversations with their DS. They are one of the teams that every one of these teams takes this very, very seriously indeed. They'll all be in consultation, but I know that Canyon Esports also have a video screen as well, with a DS on the video screen, using Discord, not just encouraging their riders, but looking at all the different permutations depending on what's happening in relation to tactics. So a lot of thinking to be done here. It's not just about good legs here. It's a lot of thought that's going to be going on into this final lap.
It is, and Reese Howell, the sports director in the virtual team car, giving out the directions to the riders. He'll also be encouraging the riders who are no longer in this front group that you still need to keep pressing on. Of course, points still scored for the top 30 riders across the line, so we'll still be giving them encouragement to say, sprint for every position that you've got, where even if you're in 24th, 25th position. All those points matter, but I think it's important, and having that team communication via Discord or whatever each team decides to use, whether that be WhatsApp or a Zoom call between themselves. Also talking for the riders. How are you feeling? Do you feel like you've got good legs? Do you think you can go for a long range attack? Do you want to risk and leave it down to the sprint finish? And also, what power up have you got? Of course, for those of you watching back home, no riders who are in the group, the rivals, you don't know what power up each rider's got. So it's all a secret, all kept up the sleeve, let's say.
Yep. Up your sleeve, in your back pocket. Although looking at these riders, there won't be much room for a power up in the back pocket. They're full of ride-ons. Great to see everybody in the Zwift community getting involved, getting on the Zwift companion app, firing on those ride-ons. Keep on doing it. I want to see a constant flurry for each race of ride-ons. Don't pace yourself with your ride-ons. Get them all out there. Get these riders encouraged, because this last lap is going to hurt. There's some nasty climbs still. That KOM to come still. One more sprint before that little kick up to the line, and it's been a tough race so far. 10.9 kilometres to go as we look at one of our riders in this league group from Team 2024, of course renamed. They rename every few years, of course, depending on the Olympic cycle. The whole team's, the kind of ideology, the ethos, or one of them, is about getting riders through for the next Olympic cycle. Lieberman there looking very, very good. Just see her cadence, a low cadence up this drag, 71 RPM, still 40 k's an hour, and a very healthy score there on the ride-ons as well, with 43, but 157 beats per minute. Suggests she's well within herself here. It's certainly, she's not going to be excruciating, but this is still going to be hurting though, isn't it?
Still going to be hurting. A little bit of movement in the shoulders there, just rocking and rolling, but keeping it very steady, wiping that sweat off the brow, and actually very comfortable. She can let go of the handlebars, sit up just a little bit, and she's still remaining on the front of this bunch, leading through. So very, very comfortable, Rachel Lieberman.
And a nice headband as well. That is it's a little bit pixelated but it looks like a cracking bit of headband action going on there from Rachel Lieberman. Always good to see the different techniques that these riders use. Some like towels, some have two fans, and some have 80s headbands. It's wonderful to see Lieberman now. Maybe Boyd, maybe she can hear us. She now takes to the front of this group. 10 kilometres to go. Lieberman, of course, has a teammate with her in this front group, Kristen Kulczynski. She's got her headphones on. They'll be talking to each other. We know how well Kulczynski can go on a course like this. 2024 managed to put two riders in this front group. Remember, three riders from Canyon Esports there as well. Mary Wilkinson, Stephanie Siddick, Kristen Pohl. We've also got one rider from I Race Like a Girl. Well, the rider of the moment, and that is Catherine Curie. Two riders still there from the women in white and blue. That's Steph Clutterbuck and Beth McIver. Lou Bates is there for No Pins R3R. The whole of the Hino team squad is there. Louise Huback, Cecilia Hansen, Vicky Whitelaw, Alice Lethbridge and Caroline Williams. And also in the mix for Dropslacole is Joss Loudon. So a real mix of riders as we look at the figure of Cecilia Hansen, steady as a rock. So it's almost like a bit of an entente cordiale here, isn't it? I mean, for the first time, we've seen, I wouldn't say a lull in the action, because I think we're going to see some serious fireworks on the final ascent of the Queen of the Mountain here. But the riders just taking that, almost like that, the final big gulp of breath before the final battle, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on this final climb.
There is. The final challenge, get yourself over that climb, and then they have one of the final times to have a micro rest on the descent. But Hino moved themselves up from the back of the bunch towards the front in time for the start of the final ascent of the Queen of the Mountain. And Kulczynski takes over with her teammate Lieberman there at the front. But a rider we haven't seen too much of, she hasn't featured in any of the intermediate sprints or the Queen of the Mountain points, is Lou Bates. And I'm wondering what she got left in the tank for this finish, because it could be a finish that suits her very, very well.
Well, sometimes, you know, depending on what your plan is, when you've got a team with that's strong in depth, and you've got riders that are tasked in particular to go out and get those points, it's fine. But when you're of a team that isn't quite as on the same kind of form, or hasn't got the same strength in depth, then you really have to consider how you use your effort out on the course. And if you're just one rider and you're thinking about the finish, it's probably quite a wise move, isn't it, to back off, because every time you make a sharp acceleration on a course like this, it digs into your reserves. It takes something away from your ability to go well at the finish. So I think that Lou Bates, from what we've seen and what that little point you just raised there, is probably playing as a conservative game as she can as we head towards the top of this long drag. Williams moves to the front. Just see Cecilia Hansen there, the little Swedish flag out of the saddle. She really is composed, isn't she? Almost riding with a little bit of flag. She actually looks like she is actually on her phone. Probably, I mean, they are allowed to communicate. She can maybe she's given herself a ride on. Who knows? We should maybe find out in the world of Zwift, which you can see on Friday, of course. What is Cecilia Hansen doing on that phone? Even more intrigue. 7.6 kilometers to go. They're going to swing right very, very shortly, slightly flat, then they'll plunge down into that series of a little right-hander, a little left-hander, and then we commence the final Queen of the Mountains of the day, that 1.2 kilometer ascent, steep at the bottom, but averages 5.5%. I do think we're going to see some splits on this final climb. I think there's some riders really itching, Hannah, to get stuck in.
They are, and wanting to force the pace from early on, put some riders under pressure. And as I said before, any of those riders who've got a good kick for the finish, those climbers will want to try and get rid of them on this Queen of the Mountain. It'll be the final test for them, the final opportunity to really shake them out of this group. And the group now only 17 riders out of the initial starting of around 60 or 70 riders at the start of this evening.
Yep, it was a real select group that went away very, very early on the opening lap. Things split up. We got to a group of around 25-30 riders on lap number 1 after a really ferocious ascent of the climb for the very first time. But riders now getting into position. Celia Hansen moving to the front, got in the aero tuck just at the right time. There's that little gentler right-hander that I was just talking about. Then another tighter right-hander. They just go over this little bridge here. The road narrows, and then there is the Queen of the Mountains point. The road kicks up here. This is a significant part of the course. Who is going to take things up now? 1.2 k's to go before we hit the Queen of the Mountains line. And this is that steep part of the climb. This is where the gradient starts to bite. Nobody using power-ups just yet. Well, they made a very, very quick pace up that first part of the climb. Kulczynski now on the front, kicking out 7.4 watts a kilo. Lieberman just behind. So the two representatives from Team 2024 happy to make the pace. This is the sort of riding that they want. They want to make it very, very hard now. And if they don't want a big group at the finish, both of these riders, they prefer the real difficult attritional finish.
They do, and I think wise move for 2024. Control this group. You set the pace. You dominate, and let the other riders feel like, okay, well, we'll just follow 2024. But of course, for Kulczynski and Lieberman. That's a good point to be in, to be side by side together, up towards the front, out of trouble. And Williams from Heino just takes over from Kulczynski. Kulczynski drops into the slipstream. Clutterpuck again from Cryo RDT, just sitting nice and comfortable there. She was a rider who scored in this Queen of the Mountain on the last lap. But our first power up just being used there by Kulczynski, taking as much draft as possible from Williams.
Yep. Although you'd say a draft power up on a climb like this isn't really going to help you too much. It will help a little bit, even in terms of saving energy. Power ups aren't just used when attacking. You can use them to help you recover just a little bit as well. But Kulczynski happy to drive a really, really hard pace on this climb. The gradient, the top right of your screen there, 7-8% on the left-hand side. A rider just coming through. I think that's Joss Loudon from Drops, just moving up the rankings there. She took maximum points, or second place, should I say, last time over the Queen of the Mountain. She's got a featherweight power up, which is definitely the one to take. So it's Loudon who's going to take maximum points here ahead of Clutterbuck. Kulczynski, I think, is going to hold on for third there. But the group hasn't split quite as much. Riders maybe thinking about that finish. The last rider at the moment who's a little bit further behind, just trying to hold on. That's Monali Keller of the insured Power by Pedal Power team in the white jersey. But there is confirmation. Loudon from Clutterbuck and Kulczynski. Queen of the Mountains number 3 done and dusted. Under 5Ks to go now, Hannah, and there is the situation. We'll look at that. Unsurprising really, with 5 riders in the front group. They're dominating yet again. 12 points for Heino, 2024 just behind in second place. Well, this is going to be an exciting finale. I thought we might see more attacks on that final climb, but this is going to be an interesting run into the line now, Hannah.
I think the pace was so ferocious on that Queen of the Mountain. If we look, Monali Keller, Rachel Lieberman and Lou Bates are 3 seconds behind this group now. So quite a surprise to see someone like Lou Bates, who is a former national hill climb champion in the UK, to be distant on that climb. She has an opportunity on this descent to try and get back in touch. Likewise with Lieberman, as the gap actually continues to grow out towards 5 seconds now. But, one more opportunity in an intermediate sprint to score for Heino. And 2024, 6 points in arrears to Heino.
Now, as you said, it is difficult to close a gap. You really need to make a big effort, and of course you're on the limit when you got dropped. It wasn't just like you missed a move and you were fresh and can try and jump across the gap. We've got 53 minutes of intense racing in the legs, and I do think it's going to be tough for those 3 riders to get back in contact, and that means we have 14 riders in this front group. Monali Keller, Lou Bates, a big surprise as you just mentioned, and Rachel Lieberman from 2024. So there's now only just 1 rider in the front for Team 2024. Lieberman, of course, will keep on fighting, because of course the first 30 places all score points, so every rider out on the course at the moment will still fight to gain valuable points for the team, and it is the team that accumulates the most points out on the road will across the finish line, and of course taking the points at the sprints and the Queen of the Mountains, and the team with the most points at the end of the night will run out the winners. So it's not just as simple as first across the line, as the feather up power up being used by Catherine Curie there. Is she thinking about some extra points here? Because she drifts to the front. No real sharp arrowhead. I think riders are just kind of almost looking at each other here, Hannah, because nobody wants to make a big effort with such a short distance to go. It's just too risky, isn't it?
It is, but a little surge to the line, and Catherine Curie perhaps thought that she would try and just sneak a few points there with no real rush, but this is where it really starts to get tactical. Those riders really deciding, where do I want to use the effort? I've got one last effort in the legs, and the one that really matters, the one to the finish line where the big points can be scored on the line. 30 for the first 30 riders, should I say, across the line score, and Heino 13 points there, 2024 down with 6. Drops Lecole with the sole representation of Joss Loudon, scoring the 6 points, in Cryo RDT with the 5. Kiss Racing team with Eiley Gardner, who's just up towards the front there. She comes into pole position at the moment.
Well, this little group, as they roll into the finish now, just 2 kilometres to go. And there is the Lou Bates group, Huback and co. Still 5 riders, remember, from Team Hino in this 14-woman group with 1.8 kilometres to go. Are we going to see a long-range attack? Williams now moves to the front. Huback not too far away as well. Hino Racing, 5 riders, remember, here. Huback, Hansen, Whitelaw, Lethbridge and Williams. Kulczynski is here for Team 2024 in the green and the blue. Clutterbuck and McIver for Team Cryo RDT in the blue and white. Eiley Gardner is there from KRT. She's got a very, very good finish on her. Watch out for her. Catherine Curie, 2 wins already this season. And Moroni, 3 races in. She has been absolutely on fire. And remember, we have 2 riders as well from Canyon Esports. Mary Wilkinson is there and Christine Pohl, the German. So a fascinating front group, and they are still all together. Had a 1,300 metres to go.
Well, you can almost cut the tension with a knife, can't you? Which rider is going to, and from which team is going to make that first move? And they turn right. And looks like Clutterbuck, the first to lead through. As you see the Flamme Rouge, denoting 1 kilometre of racing left remaining. And Curry sitting there nice and comfortable up towards the front. And Williams just chips off the front, takes a small gap as the riders go through, and they'll turn left here.
Oh, this is it. We're heading in to the final. This is the only little flat bit you could actually, yeah, as I said, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife and then use it for a scone a bit later on. Who is going to get the cream today? They're going to swing right on to the base of the climb. Look at the ride-ons here. Give these riders a bit of a ride-on, because this is where you need to get your timing absolutely to perfection. 550 metres to go. Williams now 8 watts a kilo. Clutterbuck is there as well. Hino Racing dominant in terms of numbers, but have they got the strength in their legs? Will they get the timing right? It looks like a little group starting to go clear. Kulczynski is now neck and neck with Clutterbuck. Alice Lethbridge is there as well. It's all coming back together. Catherine Curie is there as well. This is absolutely spectacular stuff. Lethbridge, Kulczynski, Clutterbuck and Sidlick are there. Power-ups are now being used. It's all about timing, as we know. It is now Clutterbuck who goes to the front from the Cryo RDT. Loudon now moves for drop, so Loudon is there, looking very, very good, and another power-up's been used. Williams, Curie, MacGyver now in front for Cryo. This is amazing. MacGyver takes the win. What an absolute turn-up for the Brooks there. MacGyver from Cryo RDT times her power-up and her sprint to perfection to take victory here in Harrogate on round 4 of season 2 of the Zwift Racing League. Racing at its best. Well, what a superb sprint. That sprint seemed to go on forever. Here is the confirmation, and there is the result. Beth MacGyver of Scotland takes the win for Cryo RDT. Mary Wilkinson, well, we said she's back in form. She certainly is, with a bang there. Second for Mary Wilkinson of Canyon Esports. Third, Catherine Curie there for I Race Like a Girl. Then Vicky Whitelaw and Cecilia Hansen, 4th and 5th for Hino. Steph Clutterbuck, the second rider from Cryo RDT. What a ride by that squad tonight. Joss Loudon is there in 7th. Caroline Williams in 8th. Kristen Kulczynski, solid as ever, in 9th. And then Eiley Gardner in 10th place. What a superb race that was.
Well, a real drag race to the finish line. And the power-ups, MacIver timing it to perfection with that aero power-up. Brilliant stuff for Cryo RDT. And here we can see our individual winner. I think she's in shock. She can't believe it. And it looks to me like she's a few tears in the eyes there, Matt.
It's a big win. I mean, that was absolutely superb. I mean, she did the work. I think she had a teammate with her as well, but importantly, she timed that sprint to perfection. We saw several riders use the power-ups lower down the slope. She used it just at the right time. She still had it as she crossed the line. That is what you need to do. And that was a really, really tough sprint there. I seemed to be like commentating on it for a long, long time. It was agonizing, but there we go. Finish line points. Beth MacGyver, 40 points. Mary Wilkinson with 35. Curie with 30, as we see a group just go underneath there, nearly a minute behind. Whitelaw with 27, Hansen at 26. Clutterbuck, Loudon, Williams, Kulczynski and Eiley Gardner. Ever consistent for KRT there with 21 points. Now what we have to do now is throw them into our computer, get the abacus and look at the net result as we get to the exact halfway point of season 2. So here we go. Well, there we go. With 5 riders in the front group, they could hardly be beaten on the night. Could the Hino Racing win again with 127 points? Canyon Esports, solid as ever in second. But look at that, great riding there by Creo RDT. Third on the night and the individual win. 2024 again, super consistent, equal on points with I Race Like a Girl with 43. Drops Lacole, good ride by them with 30, Kiss Racing Team with 24, Team Tipco Silicon Valley Bank with 18, equal with Saris and the Pros Closet, and rounding out the top 10 points-wise, Ensured, powered by Pedal Power. Well, Hannah, I don't know about you, I'm absolutely exhausted. That was an epic race, really, really attritional, and a superb sprint at the end. And I wouldn't say a surprise result, but a really well-deserved result there for Cryo RDT.
Brilliant. I think the way that they rode during the race with, both Beth McIver and Steph Clutterbuck in the front group, Steph Clutterbuck scoring in the Queen of the Mountains, and I think, putting the points on the table, on the scoreboard, and McIver just finishing it off. I think it just shows how happy, how thrilled she was with the victory, the individual victory in Harrogate. And I think that result there and how they scored moves them up as well in the team overall standings. But for McIver, the Scottish rider, fantastic stuff. And Catherine Curry, after her 2 individual wins, taking third.
Yeah, Catherine Curry, exceptionally good. Well, this is a few highlights. This was the final climb, of course. Earlier on in the day. These are the highlights of the Queen of the Mountains points and the sprints. Action all the way, a really selective race. Nobody really jumping off the front as such. More a wearing down process and riders going backwards on a course that we've seen in the past. This is the way that races on this course generally pan out. It does suit the riders who can really, really hang in there and suffer. And there was certainly lots of suffering today. But the suffering turned into joy for one rider in particular. Beth McIver, rider of the day there, Josh Loudon, the only representative from Drops Lacole in that front group. And as we get towards the finish, Hannah, I'll leave you to call that finish because I don't think I've got anything left. I need to save myself with Dave for the men's race. But here we go. Well, we can see the finish there. I mean, that really was something special. I mean, sprinting, the timing was absolutely spot on, wasn't it?
It was perfect. Williams from Hino was the rider who wanted to try and lead out from the bottom of the climb, the Zwift Draft House on the left-hand side, and the gap did start to open up with Kulczynski. You've got Clutterbuck there up towards the front, and one rider from Hino. But McIver really leaving it quite late. You can just see her coming round on the outside. She's about midway through the peloton right now, and Loudon actually had a superb run towards the finish line. She had the aero power up. She opened up a gap, but when McIver decided to go, she really lit the burners. She came with a lot of power, a lot of force, and she starts to come on the left-hand side of the finish round Joss Loudon with that power up. And no rider had anything left to match the effort from the rider from Scotland. And just look at the sheer power here. Mary Wilkinson making a late charge towards the line, but it was too late. McIver takes the individual victory in Harrogate.
Brilliant stuff. That really was a wonderful race. We always get treated when we come to Harrogate. The crowd loving it as well, but that is the net result. Hino Racing 4 from 4 as we get to the halfway point. 80 points to the good. Canyon Esports still solid as a rock in second place with 74. 2024, they're third with 69. I Race Like a Girl, fourth with 68. Moving up, Cryo RDT after that superb performance today. Equal fifth with Ensured, powered by Pedal Power. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet. Kiss Racing equal with Team Swedish Swifters, and rounding out the top 10 teams at the halfway point, Drops Lacole. Well, Hannah, we'll see you at the end of the programme. Thanks very much indeed for your insight, analysis and enthusiasm as ever. But it's time to bring in the legend that is Dave Towell for some men's racing now.
Well, thanks, Matt. I am stoked. This is going to be a monster day of racing. We were talking about Innsbruck and how that was the hardest climb we've ever seen. Well, there's almost 100 meters more of climbing out here today. This is the hardest course I think we're going to see all season. So the guys are having at it. This is going to be an absolute throwdown. They realize they're running out of time as we're coming up on the middle point of the season here. If you want to make some headway on PO Auto Ceramic Speed or Canyon, this is your moment. So you got to make hay while it's out in the field. And boy, do they have a lot to work with 3 laps out on this course. Each lap at almost 14 kilometers, Matt. And as we saw in the women's race there, only the strong survive. We've got an OSS situation.
We certainly have, Dave. Well, before we look again to what's in store today, let's have a quick look back at that race in Innsbruck last week, because it was spectacular. This week, we head to Innsbruck for the KOM after party.
3 laps, including the leg snapper 3 times. The hardest climb that we've ever had in the Zwift Racing League. It's a brutal course out there today.
Look at some of the power that's been dropped. 9 watts a kilo, just saw 11, 12 watts a kilo. We're just heading towards the sprint point here. A few power-ups being used now. Ingo Reichardt of the Kirkmare e-racing team. Oh, it's going to be very, very tight indeed. Carol from Mel from Glendes. Evans on the front, been overtaken now. How about Glendes of the Callas e-racing team? Another very, very hard port sprint.
Look at that, a flurry of power-ups.
All the power-ups have been dropped. Reichardt takes that ahead of Glendes of the Callas e-racing team.
This has gone full gas now. You can see multiple splits.
Holton, Jones and McGlinchey now have 4.5 seconds over Corey Williams.
Corey Williams, he helped shut that break down.
The riders being dropped at the relentless pace. 1 kilometre to go. Ikeda is clear. This could be an absolutely sensational win. Obet takes the lead. Obet with a perfectly timed sprint takes the win ahead of Lana Biasan. Takato Ikeda in 3rd.
What a race.
Freddie Ovet took his first individual win for the Legion of Los Angeles, and this is the situation at the head of affairs. Series points, PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Well, they're leading with 59 points, but not too far behind Canyon Esports with 54. Then we have Saris and the Pros Closet. Dutch Racing, Legion of Los Angeles. The Kirkmare e-racing team, one of the revelations of the season so far. Zwift Warriors, watch out for them too, especially on these climbs. Callas Esports, World Elite Zwifters. And 9th, equal with them, Ensured, powered by Pedal Power. I'm going to bring in Dave again just to pull out a couple of the teams and riders to look out for, because the men's race is underway. Dave, quick picks from our lineup today.
Well, I'm definitely going to look at Kirkmire today. They're a team that, if they're going to have an impact in this league, today is their day to prove it, to make a mark. Rider like Ingo Reichardt, I would certainly be watching for. Also, Bolt Racing. Obviously, I'm not talking about PO Auto Ceramic Speed or Canyon, because they've already proven themselves to be the gold standard out here. But Bolt Racing is looking to make a move as well. They've got Nicky Hug. He should be well suited to this course. It's just going to be body blow after body blow out here. You really want to be a bike racing buoy, I would say, always floating to the top, but not quite out of the water, right? Nobody wants to be in a solo breakaway unless it's in the final 500 meters today, because the reality of how strong, I mean, these are the gladiators of Zwift. As we saw a dramatic selection made early, Matt, what do you think? Same thing here today. Front group, is it smaller than 30 riders the first lap when it's done and dusted?
Yeah, I think this is, as you said. I mean, I mean, the racing sometimes differs from kind of men's to women's racing. But I think the bottom line is, this is an attritional course, IRL and on Zwift as well. It's a punishing course. Great analogy there, body blow after body blow. It's almost like a boxing match. You've just got to suffer your way through this course, but you've got to be attentive. You've got to be quick on your feet as well, not miss any splits. But we're already quite a way into the race. Looking at Freddie Ovet, last week's winner, we've already gone 5.9 Ks. They have absolutely ripped up that first part of the course. But yeah, I'm expecting, as we head towards the finish, given the punishing nature of today's course, Dave, for there to be a select group that we get to the finish. But at the moment, so far, we've got a fair few riders still hanging on, but we've yet to hit the KOM.
Yeah, the triple crown of racing out here. Will anyone ever win 3 races in one season? I thought Catherine Curie was going to come close, and she's got more cracks at it as the season goes on. But Freddie Ovett could certainly be a back-to-back winner. He would be on my short list out here today. I was also looking at Ryan Larson of Ceres, the Pros Closet. That's a rider, that yellow and green jersey. They're right in that cluster of teams from Dutch Racing, Ceres, Legion of LA. That's the team of Freddie Ovett and Kirkmeyer. These are the squads that are all hovering right there between 3rd and 7th. There's another name to watch, Alec Cowan. I've seen he's been training in Tucson, Arizona, putting in monster miles right now. As we take a look at the Legion of Los Angeles team, this is a fun team to watch. Their rider today, we mentioned Freddie Ovett, we talked about Alec Cowan, the Canadian, but Tyler Williams out of Santa Rosa, California, Matt, he rode for the Israel Cycling Academy back before they became Israel Startup or the current Chris Froome iteration of the team. He's got that high-level experience. He's got a huge engine, and he's all in on the Legion of LA program. So watch out for him today. And I heard you and Hannah talking about Kit, and I love Legion of LA. It's a solid look here as we roll them along, Matt. Maybe, as you said, every race, it's like an opera. There's always going to be a story. There's going to be drama along the way. One thing, maybe the men ease into this one a little bit more as we see Anders Foldager up on the front of the Pio Auto Ceramic Speed. Matt, this is the number 1 team in the world right now.
Yeah, they are flying with so much strength and depth. They really have. And of course, in the form of Anders Foldager and Nicholas Pedersen, both stood on the podium at the first ever Esports World Championships. Of course, Foldager was 2nd and Pedersen was 3rd. And as you said, they're the leading team. But we're on to the climb in short order. And they are absolutely romping up this climb. Some massive numbers being thrown down, 8 watts per kilo. It normally takes me double the time to get to this point on the climb when I'm going really, really hard. They are absolutely flying up this. 8 kilometers under the virtual wheels done so far. Lionel Vujasan at the front as we look at Foldager in his cave there, knocking out a nice casual 550 watts, 87 RPM. And he's just staying in the bunch. This isn't an attack. You need to hold 500 watts just to stay in the group. Again, another real kind of indicator of anybody who's ridden on Zwift of how hard and higher level we've got right here in this racing here, Dave.
Yeah, Lionel Vujasan is a perfect example of a true blue Zwifting star. This rider out of Belgium, Matt, he was so close in that Zwift Academy. I know it was right. He was one of the final 2. That was heartbreaking to watch. But what I love in typical Belgian fashion, he just gets right back at it. You can see him up on the front right now for the Canyon team. Now, he has been phenomenal. If you had a rider of the season up to this point, we've talked about Freddie Ovett, Michael Voets, who won for Dutch Racing, the first scratch rate or points race that we had this year. I'd have to give it to Lionel, to tell you the truth. He's never, including the team time trial where his Canyon squad was 2nd, he has not gone outside of the top 3, and I know he'll be disappointed if he does so today, but it looks like we've got some points, 3, 2, and 1 points. We score these 3 deep, and it's a surge up and over the top. And is that going to be Freddie Ovett? It looks like it is. The Australian is back, and he is in full effect. Last week's winner is crushing souls out here. That was an authoritative sprint win, Matt.
Well, that was he was throwing down just under 12 watts a kilo there to score some points for the Legion of Los Angeles. Of course, his squad sit 5th. They put out a really good team time trial just a couple of weeks back. Another team time trial next week, of course. But starting as he finished, winning a sprint, Knudsen in 2nd. And Chris McGlinchey, good to see the rider from Vitus Pro Cycling. They've had a relatively disappointing start to the season so far, but we know once they get it right, they really can deliver. But that's an emphatic start from the Legion. I didn't think we'd see Freddie Ovett going quite so early. It just shows that team are riding on the crest of a wave, and I know that they are riding together as well in Los Angeles. They've got their new service course kitted out. They've got their new kit. They've got the team car. They are just loving life at the moment, and great to see them.
It's one of the best stories in cycling right now, Legion of LA, no doubt about it. I just saw another great story. Former police officer, Matt, Michael Knudsen in Denmark, where he was a police officer for years. He now works with special needs children. He's an incredible human being who recently set the Everesting record on Zwift. He's got a massive capacity. He's a great story. And he's just part of what makes PO Auto Ceramic Speed a next-level team. They're the Hino of men's racing out here. They just don't miss a step. You might be wondering, why do you see 59 points, not 60? Well, just like anybody, you've got to be able to verify your performances, heart rate, all of these things. And they did have a little bit of a stumble there, but nothing that's keeping them outside of the top scoring team out here. So another rider to watch out here today. And I love the aggression that we're seeing. Matt, they're going to do significant damage out here on lap number 1. They've got the 20 pounds or 10-stone sledgehammer out, and they are just wailing away on the front out here as we're looking at Otema opening up a small gap, but you can see that's what the damage looks like behind. Boy, Matt, I know you love riding out here in Yorkshire. I get it, but it's fun to watch racing here because it brings out the best in our field. They've got such a tapestry to work with. This is Ollie Jones that we're looking at now. Now you can see why we're sussing out the top riders today as they're looking to pick up points here. It's going to be Tom Thrall, the Canadian. Yep. Nice job for insured pedal power.
Yeah, good rider. We know Thrall has won big before on Zwift. He's got a real powerful sprint. He put that to good effect there, taking that's quite an interesting little hotspot sprint there because it doesn't come into sight till very, very late indeed. Thrall from Jones, from Freddie Ovett. Ovett recovering quickly to take another point there for the Legion of Los Angeles. And it looks like Steinman has come across to this little group. Oh, we've got a little group forming. Ovett, Thrall, Jones and Steinman now 3 seconds in front. That's the early leaderboard there in terms of points scored out on the road. Legion in front, Insured second, PO Auto Ceramic Speed in third, equal with Canyon, Vitus with a solitary point. Nice little breakaway forming here.
It's interesting because it's one more run up. They're going to be back in. 4 is a tough number because there's not points for everybody if you hold on to the next bonus, as we only score them 3, 2, and 1 points. Looking at this group now, I think a lot of guys here, as we do have a chance to hit the reset button, no one, Matt, is going to be surprised. They'll all have reconnoitered this course. This is one of, I would say, the most raced on courses that we have on Zwift. As we said, it brings out the best in our fields. So it's not going to be anybody that's expecting to get a free ride here. As a matter of fact, I think there might be a few riders that are surprised to look around and see a group this large as we take some inventory here. Each lap at just under 14K, so we're about to come through and move into the middle part of the race now, a new phase here. You survived the first barrage on lap number 1. These guys don't offer any quarter. There's none asked for, and there's none given.
Oh, there certainly isn't. This really is a tough course, but as you said, we've still got a pretty sizable group here. We're looking at around, we've got around, 65. Let's have a little look. 66, 65 riders in this front group. A couple of riders have already been tailed off as we look at the lineup for Saris and the Pros Closet. Former American champion Ryan Larson is there, 9th in the Worlds at the end of last year. Gavin Dempster, the very quick Scot. Dan Fleeman, former British hill climb champion, ex-pro on the World Tour circuit as well. He'll like this course. Matt Gardner and David Talbot. Saris and the Pros Closet currently sitting 3rd in the standings, and a team with a real kind of balanced roster. They've got somebody who can do everything. They've got a good climber there. They've got riders who can go clear, and they've got riders who can finish it off from a group as well. As we swing past the place that we know so well, that's the draft house just down the road where we had some fun commentating on some IRL Zwift racing. But this is this little drag to the line. It won't be long before we complete lap number 1. And a few power-ups being used on the climb, unsurprisingly.
So the best memories of my life come from that draft house, Matt, as we roll by, as we're right now with Gavin Dempster. He's the Scottish rider on Saris the Pros Closet. His American teammate, Ryan Larson, you were mentioning, these are the two that I would be watching for on this squad, and they've been doing a great job. They're tied in 3rd right now. And it's always worth noting, as I know folks are just jumping in right now, and you're looking at what a bike race, no doubt about it. We have a start line and a finish line. Along the way, however, it turns into a points race. That's where you see these bonus sprints. They're scored 3 deep. There's not a ton of points, but there's enough to make a difference. That's for sure. And then you look at the heavily weighted finish line, 40 points for the winner, 35 for second, 30 for third. So it then, Matt, really starts to stack up like cordwood when you get from 5th from there on down. So it's a significant difference if you can get up on the podium for points versus, a finish between 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th is all more or less the same thing. But that being said, that's where we really decide what team is going to win. As you saw with Heino, what they do, it's beautiful if you can do it. Put 3 riders into the top 10. If you can do that, there's almost no chance that you're not going to win based on team points. And at the end of the day, Matt, that's how we keep score here.
It certainly is. Very well succinctly explained there, Dave. It is all about the team. There's still, of course, a lot of glory from winning one of these individual rounds, but it is all focused on the team as we look at the men from the lowlands, the Dutch racing team. And they've actually changed their kit for season 2. It used to be all orange, but I'm white. I'm liking this kit. They've got a rival lion to the Legion of Los Angeles. They're going to be tearing chunks out of each other, the 2 lions on the respective kits there. Joost van den Bosch, Rick Ottema, Mako Vert, Pim van Diemen and Etienne van Empel. Etienne van Empel, a former pro for Vini Sabu, an Italian team. I think he's actually ridden some Grand Tours in the past, so they have a very, very strong team, and they're sitting highly on the general classification as well. Dutch racing really got into their stride, of course. They do have their own Dutch Racing League on Zwift as well, but they're currently sitting 4th. But as we just ramp our way up this long drag at the back of the circuit, we were saying before we came on air, Dave, you've got quite an explicit kind of view on this course. I mean, you love the scenery, you love the places to go for scones. I love to ride on it. What are your thoughts on riding on this course on Zwift?
Not a fan at all. Avoid it every chance I have. That's what I love about so it's funny, Matt, because I loved that experience, but this is just hard. It's relentless is a good way to put it. And so my typical day of riding starts early in the morning, and I'm not always in for a slugfest, right? I might want to ease into the day a little bit, do some fuego flats, but for racing, this is absolutely perfect. It reminds me, again, of how hard this day is. I'm going to put this one back on you. Is this the hardest day of racing that we're going to have in Season 2 of the ZRL?
I think it's quite possible. I mean, obviously, we had last week was really, really quick, and we had that kind of climb to the line. Really did suit not just the lighter riders, but the rider that can ride at threshold so well. But in Zwift racing, you do need to be able to kind of just hold your kind of threshold. There's a kind of time trial element. It's just kind of suffering all the way. But when you look at the profile here, your kind of power curve, your power profile is going to pretty much mirror the profile that you see. A lot of opportunities to rev. You're either on the gas or off it briefly, then back on it again. And even the flattest part of the circuit, which they're on now, is a kind of 3-4% drag. It really is a tough course. And I would say this could be one of the toughest days. Also because it's one of the longer distances as well, Dave.
So Matt, as a former pro yourself, you know well that you can't really judge the quality of a rider just by looking at them. It's sort of that book cover thing. You can't see inside someone to know. It's like a house with no windows. You can't see inside to see how fit or tough they are. And so this is the kind of course, though, that the riders that have those oak tree type legs, the Mads Pedersens, Matteo Trentins, in no way are these big riders. We're talking 75 kilo, but maybe up to 80 kilo. For a pro bike racer, that's a big dude. That's a solid guy. And that's the kind of rider that can just take these hits. Oh, and think, oak tree type rider, because you've got to be resilient here. And it's coming, believe me, folks. It's like the tax bill. It will come. It might not be here today, but they'll get it to you. And this is going to whittle down. I'm going to guess, Matt, the next time we're riding through this sector of the course, we're going to see this group more like 25 riders. There's some big hits coming.
Yeah, we're going to need a little bit more pressure on the front because there's still a few riders in, but I know some of the riders, we're 22 minutes into the racing. There's going to be some serious suffering going on at the moment as we look at Bruce Bird. This is Team Draft, the men in red.
Bruce Bird,
Jed Scott.
Bruce Bird, the largest rider in the race, Matt. I've got him at 82 kilo. I shouldn't say as far as weight goes. I could do a little more research, but he's a Canadian who is well suited to what I'm talking about, the resilient type rider. See Rutherham up there, but Bird riding up near the front for draft racing here. Another team that's looking to claw their way up the table. right now, a team that has a lot of potential. They're riding very well here today.
No, they certainly are. But the draft team currently sitting 17th overall, but they've got pretty much all of their number. And we're looking at Ross Fawcett there. Looks like he's just in the corridor, or not in the toilet. Was one rider who was actually riding in. That was Saris and the pros closet. I think Gavin Dempster pretty much rides in his toilet for most of these races. But again,
it's supposed to be
nice and cool
pros
anyway.
closet, pros closet, not water closet, right?
Exactly. But no, you're quite right. Talking about the sort of riders that excel on this sort of course, it's a real classic specialist course. I mean, if you can climb, it helps. If you can sprint, it kind of helps. But you need to be the sort of rider that can sustain a lot of damage and do well at the kind of 1 minute, 1.5 minute pure efforts. So yeah, I would call this a classic specialist course, but can kind of suit everybody. But you'd certainly need to be able to take a lot of punishment. As we look at one of the revelations of the season here, Dave, Kirkmare E-Racing team come up from the community. They have got some quality amongst their number.
They sure do. I remember, Matt, when we started the season, I was saying, watch out for this squad coming from our community. They're going to be underappreciated, and don't sleep on them. And certainly Kirkmare Ingo is a rider that I have on my short list to win the race today. I absolutely believe that it's not only within his capacity, I think it might be his destiny, to tell you the truth. So this is it's not entirely German, it's an Austro-German squad here, but Ingo along with Johannes, these are two. Johannes Reckenauer is another very dangerous rider. We talk about the team points here. Well, Matt, I will be the first to acknowledge at the end of the day, a bike race is a bike race, and a racer is always going to race to win. Sure, back of your mind, you're thinking team. You don't want to drop teammates out of a front group. All of these things make a lot of sense, but these riders like winning. They're stone cold killers for the most part. I know you saw that in your career as well, Matt. There are some riders that become helpers. They become very, very good at helping other people win. But some riders, I put Stefan Roach in that category, was born to win. It's just your destiny. And not Eddie Merckx would be the greatest example of all. His win percentage in his career is mind-blowing when you look at a guy who won basically 1 out of every 3 times he started, Matt, for his entire career.
Yeah, his hit rate is something very, very special. But as you say, yeah, there are some riders who are kind of used to winning a little bit more, have that kind of drive and desire. Everybody will harbour those kind of secrets of trying to win, but the name of the game here is all about accumulating points for your team. And this is one of the standout teams, Takato Ikeda. Well, the man with the glasses looking directly at me, that is a stare, isn't it? Look at that, he is determined. That steel-like stare there from Takato Ikeda. Well, he was 3rd last week. The Zwift Warriors Cycling moving up from the community leagues. Simon Ritchie, Yuki Tanaka, Hyundori Sosachi and Kanji Abeki. Great to see this team in the mix, and great to see that podium last week. That was a special ride. They're going to get confidence, and again, it just shows these teams that have moved up and that are kind of happy to mix it with these more established teams on the Zwift community. It just tells us one thing, is that Zwift Racing is in a very, very good place. And there is the aforementioned podium spot from last week, Takato Ikeda, fully in the zone at the moment.
He looks like a tiger right before it eats you. Just kind of ready to chomp. So we have community racing coming up tomorrow, Matt, which is so much fun.
Yep.
All the way down to D-level racers up to racers like we just saw there. The couple of teams, we were talking about Kirkmare and Zwift Warriors. They were community teams who did exceptionally well, got the promotion, and here they are in the thick of it. All right, we're right at the midpoint of this race now. We see... So this is our ride-on rating. I was smashing that button earlier, as it looks like Michael, he is hugely popular, the Danish rider here on PO Auto Ceramic Speed. I can see why. Boy, these are some familiar names. Matteo Sigala, the Irish-Italian, Lionel Viasen, Freddie Ovitt, Corey Williams up there in the top 5. Your man, McGlinchey, right there behind Collard. All right. Well, keep them coming, folks.
Indeed.
The ride-ons are awfully fun to track. There we get to see Michael Knudsen right in the middle of the group. We'll be talking about him, certainly top 10 in his future, I would think, today.
Yeah, he's obviously, as you said, a very, very popular figure. And you were right, because you preempted that. Here he is, right on cue. Thanks to our producer there. They're getting us to the right man. Knudsen there, kind of rear on shot. Is that another little bit of a headband kind of situation going on there? Knudsen sticking out 600 watts and a lot of power-ups there, 257, over 100 power-ups more than anybody else. But if you are watching, please do get involved, not just in the comment section telling us what are your thoughts on the racing, but get behind these riders. Jump on your companion app and give these riders a nice little ride on. Fill their pockets with joy as we look at Christopher McGlinchey. Again, we're getting, as we just mentioned, just over halfway now. Look at that, a lovely flurry of ride-ons as we've requested you to do. So it's great. It does mean so much to these riders. And there's Chris McGlinchey, 446 watts, 185 beats a minute on this climb. He is at or near his kind of threshold. And for the second time up this climb, Dave, we're seeing a couple of riders kind of getting tailed off. We're now at around 60 riders in this front group.
Yeah, slowly but surely. And actually, we'll start to open up the pain faucet here a little bit. It's been dripping. It's going to become a steady flow here in a moment. And here you go. You can see it's starting to thin out now at the back of the. Look at this. Tickets getting punched all over the place. Was Jaden Yeager, the rider out of Wisconsin here in the United States, a national champion on the road as a master. He's a very, very popular Zwifter, that's for sure. So he lights the fuse. This is going to be another, so he's not quite going to get in the points unless he got a couple more watts here, and it looks like Freddie Ovett will be right behind Chris McGlinchey there. McGlinchey, the Northern Irishman, then Ovett, then Jimmy Kershaw. That's a who's who there. Etienne Van Empel getting up into fifth there, right behind Jaden. Oh, boy. Some of the names that you would expect to see up here on the front there, and we'll score another sprint, 3 deep there. Ooh la la. It's hotting up out here.
It certainly is. That was a good, well-timed sprint by McGlinchey. And I tell you what, Freddie Ovett, fresh from that win last week, he has got some good legs today. So Legion of Los Angeles, after that second place there, still leading. Vitus Esports move up to second with 4. Insured there in third. Pure Auto Ceramic Speed equal with Canyon Esports and the World Elite Zwifters with a 1 point. Lots more points to score. But we're now deep in to lap 2. Next time through the finish, they will get the bell. Still a substantial group, but a lot of riders were put on the ropes. We talk about boxing analogies. I can tell you what, there were some riders really against the ropes there. Almost the referee had to kind of stand in and stop them getting the body blows. But I think there's about 50 riders now in this front group. A few riders still fighting to get back in contact. It just shows there, McGlinchey there having to fight to maintain his position in this group, because the road swings left here, Dave, and kicks right back up again.
I'd call him Cool Hand Luke to tell you. So we talked about Zwift efficiency, Matt. So what he did there was, so you saw that he and Freddie, when they were done with that sprint, they fell to the back of that group like a bowling ball down an elevator shaft. I mean, they went flying back through the group. All of a sudden, there's a 10-meter gap, but I think McGlinchey's experienced enough and he's using the right view there that he saw another group was coming that would rejoin, and he didn't burn an extra watt out there. So very stingy with the calories, this McGlinchey. I love it, is that's how you do it, keeping that TSS as low as possible, Matt. The rider that wins this race is doing very little work at this moment because just got to keep that powder dry, as we say. Here's another attack. Is this going to be the Dutch rider? It is going to be Otema going off the front. So, boy, they're throwing down the gauntlet. The Dutch team, again, sitting tied for third with Saris the Pros Closet. We're going to see these two teams really having at it out here today. And here's another good example.
Yeah, Otema rolling clear there. Looks like he's just going to hold on to take maximum points, but he's been closely tailed here. Ikada and Fawcett are there as well, so great to see the Japanese rider. Looks like he did get second place. We'll get confirmation of that at in a few moments' time. Ikeda, we know he can climb well. He was sticking out 11.5 watts per kilo in that sprint and has gone for a very, very interesting hairdo as well for his avatar. Look at that. That's a kind of almost mane of locks. Otema from Ikeda there. And it's all coming back together. A couple of riders from Team Draft just rolling through there. This is the ideal opportunity to try and go clear if you can, because a couple of gaps have appeared. Legion still leading with 6, but lots of other teams in the mix too. Vitus, Insured and Dutch Racing and the Zwift Warriors, courtesy of that point by Ikeda, now on the scoreboard. When we're deep now into lap number 2. We're just going to snake our way through the back streets, through this little nice suburban area, but again, not much of an opportunity to rest. And as you can see, just by the size and the shape of this peloton, that there's a few tired legs in the mix now. 25k's done, 15.8 to go.
Yeah, this course just grinds on you. Look at how low the heart rate is here for Bruce Bird out of Canada. Unbelievable. But right now, the physiology of an athlete like this, and looking composed, I would say, all things considered, as he's throwing down at times 400 watts out here. So looking at this group now, you start to realize this is going to be a complicated case to crack today. Alex Tenselhoff having a great ride. He's been hovering up near the front. We begin the climb to the finish line. Now, we were talking about reconnoitering, Matt. It's like threading a needle with your heart rate at 190 beats per minute. It is so hard to get this one right when you talk about the sprint that we'll be having in about half an hour or so from now, as this race is getting deep into it. A little bit less than that, starting to string out a little bit more here.
Yep, it's riders are taking their opportunity to kind of get a measure, just check who's in this group, look at the kind of different permutations, but we've still got 60 riders in this front group. I thought it would have whittled down a little bit more than this, but it hasn't. We've just been under the Flamme Rouge, signifying 1 kilometre to go, but of course we do have another full lap of this very difficult undulating circuit here in Harrogate in Yorkshire. This is that little right turn. They'll give a little bit of a wave to the draft house. Some fond memories there, and back onto the climb, and a few riders on this steeper section, the ones who've got the featherweight power-ups, using them wisely here as we take a look at a team with one of my favourite kits on Zwift. It is the No Pins R3R race team. Scott Gleeson, Liam Bard, Chris Smart, Klaas van der Naarde, the Belgian rider, and then Zach Harner. That is a nice kit.
Yeah, I completely agree, Matt. When we look at this one now with 1 lap to go, maybe we do have a winner come out of the woodwork today. Maybe there will be some type of an upset. A lot of riders keeping their head above water out here. We've been talking about Nicky Hug a little bit. I have a feeling he's a top 5 rider today, the Swiss rider on the Bolt team. We'll see if he can back that up. I'm sticking with Ingo Reichert today, and he's been keeping that powder dry, as we say. We haven't seen him overexerting himself at all. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen him put his nose in the wind yet. As we roll through, we would have just gone by Matt's favorite scone delivery center, Betty's, there just a moment ago. Matt, you had an account there, I heard.
I cannot confirm or deny the fact I had an account there, but quite possibly. Well, there we go. But it's a wonderful place, wonderful scones. If you ever are in the centre of Harrogate, make sure you pop over there. It's kind of, almost worth the ticket just to get there, to be perfectly honest with you. As we look at Chris Ernst, Akeda, who's looking at the heart rate data here from some of these riders, maximum of 192 there from Akeda. Dropping as low as 147, average of 171. So looking at his max there, it just shows that these riders are in or around riding at threshold constantly. There's going to be some serious spikes there just because of the nature of the course, because it's up and down, but some big highs, and if there's an opportunity to get a few lows. As we look at Segerbrook just in the centre of this group here, into the final lap now. Lap 3 of 3, 36 minutes and counting. Difficult to call this one at the moment as we look at Canyon Esports. Alex West, Gary Muller, Ollie Jones, a former winner of the Zwift Academy. There's another Zwift Academy finalist there in Lionel Vujasan, as well as Alex West, of course. And Vujasan, well, he's my favourite for today. We've talked about him a lot. He's been so consistent. And then although he's not a pure sprinter, he can deliver the right amount of power on a kind of difficult finish like that. And rounding out the squad from Canyon Esports is Spencer Segerbrook. So for me today, I think the way that Lionel has ridden, so consistent, third and a first, as well as that good ride in the team time trial, I'm going to go for the Belgian today.
You were talking with Hannah about the power-ups available when you look for the helmet, the van, and the feather out there. It might come down to, Matt, when you look at it, if it is going to be a big group, and traditionally in real life, Let's see. In the women's race, we saw Annemiek van Vleuten come to the finish line alone with a solo advantage, but typically it was small groups. Actually, remember the U23 men's race where the guy who won the sprint ended up not being world champion as he was disqualified for an incident that happened something like 120 kilometers earlier in the race. That's one of the beautiful things about Zwift is we avoid that and dodgy sprints we don't have to worry about out here. You have to hold your line on Zwift, as there is no other option. We're down to about 12K to go. We're going to find a worthy winner out of a massive group. I'll admit, Matt, if you had asked me to predict how many riders are in the front group as we had on the last lap, I would have said not only under 30, I would have predicted under 20. Very similar to what you saw in the women's race earlier, but it says to me, once again, reaffirming every race is a different story, and the racers write that story. I don't get to write it, you don't get to write it, the fans don't write it, the racers write it, and you never know how they're going to write it, what the team's tactics are for the day. But I think, Matt, my estimation is a lot of these teams decided that they wanted to keep this thing together and end up taking their chances in a field sprint and think that maybe that's how you beat P.O. Auto. I'm not saying that that's how you beat P.O. Auto Ceramic Speed, but why not try that? Nothing else has worked up to this point.
Yep, certainly hasn't. It is a big group. I've just had another little check. There are still 60 riders in this group. One or two riders, way out of contact now. But 60 riders heading into the final lap. We're just heading up the Otley Road. We're just cresting the highest point of the back end of the circuit. We then drop down again before we kick up again and turn right, heading ever closer to the final King of the Mountains of the day. Remember that 1.2 kilometre climb. We do that little switch back over the stone bridge, then up the climb. That is the point that I think we will see for the final time this group whittle down. But with it being 60 strong, well, I think we'll definitely lose a few. Will we see a breakaway, or will we see an elite group go clear? But importantly, will we see a group go that work together? It's all about the right permutation of riders. That's one thing that they need to consider as well. And as you said, because it's such an interesting finish, that right-hander, that little drag, and then the kind of flattish finish, it could all be down to the type of power up they use, that how you actually take the sprint. If you've got a feather up, you might want to go early, try and get a gap on the climb. If you've got the aero boost, you might want to save that towards the finish. And that's going to be, it could be the determining factor, because it's such a difficult sprint to get right, this one. It really, really is. It's a very long sprint. It's not one of those short, punchy ones. It favours the riders that can try and go long, but of course, you don't want to go too long and get your timing wrong. So, difficult one to call this.
Yeah, that aero sprint, Matt, that you're talking about, 25% off of your aerodynamic profile for 15 seconds. That's massive. That's the difference out there. But they're randomly distributed, so you've got a 1 in 3 chance of having that power up, and that's where the gameplay element of Zwift, it's significant out here. That gameplay element also talks about it's more than tactics, it's ability to stay in the draft, be as efficient as possible. Patrick Wally, another rider here that has tremendous experience, the insured pedal power rider who not only, he's got a head for this sport, no doubt about it. He's got a very high racing IQ. As you can see, he was perfectly positioned in the group there. But he also is one of the riders who, in this platform, just doesn't miss a step. Alex Tenselhoff, we're going in. Boy, Alex looks as cool as a cucumber right now, Matt. That's a guy, it's hard to believe that he's this far into a race on this course looking that good. Nice work, Alex.
He certainly knows how to sit in the wheels, get that benefit of the draft. They've almost as if, very similar to the final lap of the women's race, that selection had already been made. We had those kind of 15, 20 riders in that front group. We've got far more numbers here, but because of the size of the group, if you sit in the wheels, especially if you sit in the middle of the pack towards the back, that is where you're going to get the most benefit from drafting. So sticking it around 250, 300 watts there. He's not going to be too distressed, but 9.4 kilometres to go. What is the tactic going to be? Some riders definitely going to wait for the sprint. Others, I think, are going to try and split things up on this climb.
that was Finesse Rockets rider Alex Tenselhoff that we're looking at. The Finesse Rockets are another team that have to be right now champing at the bit for their opportunity, keeping riders up in this front group. It's an exciting time now for some of these teams that are looking to slay the dragon. Let's be honest, Matt. PO Auto Ceramic Speed has not missed a step so far in Season 2. Closest team to them is Canyon, sitting 4 points back, which is remarkably close. But then you've got Dutch Racing. Now, they have a win with Michael Voltz. He won the first race this season. Freddie Ovitt wins one for Legion of LA. PO Auto wins that team time trial. You don't have to win the race outright to win the day for your team. We talk about how important it is to stack riders up in the top 10. If you get 2 up in the top 10, there's probably going to be another team that does it as well. It'll come down to your third rider. So it's always interesting to watch how all the points add up out here. But wow, a tremendous number of riders are still in the fight. And Matt, I think that, as we analyze the Zwift Racing League, as we're into Season 2, right at the middle point of Season 2, I think the one thing that's impressed me the most is the depth. How many talented riders we have out here, which makes the racing it's not a dominant affair every week. Even though, PO Auto's been super impressive, there's so many riders that are here for the fight. I love it.
Yep. I think it just shows, the teams that have been battling it out in the community divisions have come to the top. They're unafraid to get stuck in. They clearly have the physiological kind of abilities to stay with these groups. And the men's racing, it's getting harder and harder to split it unless there's a really, really big climb, which just shows the amount of riders now that have really got this kind of the racing on Zwift dialed. The standard is really, really high, and the abilities of these riders is quite remarkable, because this is going to be a race that's on the slightly longer slide as well. It's not going to be shy of an hour, probably around 55 minutes, probably only about 10 minutes or so of racing still to go at the speeds we know these riders are capable of. We're just at the furthest point of the top end of the circuit now. We've got a sharp 90-degree right-hander. It's flat for a second. Then there's one of the final opportunities to get a little bit of rest, maybe find a good position, because what you want to do, you don't want to be dropping too far back on the approach to this final climb. You want to be in a good position, but also relatively fresh as we hit the bottom, because in just around a kilometre's time, we're hitting the final climb of the day. The 1.2 kilometre ascent, 5.5% average, but the climb is weighted. The steeper sections are towards the bottom, then it just drags to the line as we look at Lionel Vuillersan. 407 watts there, clearly wanting to get himself, Dave, in a good position for the bottom of the climb.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, though, Matt, on what you were talking about. Use the term surfing the group, right, where you really want to catch that wave as it goes. In an ideal world, right, you've got riders firing off their feathers right in front of you, kind of thing, to help you launch, use them as a booster rocket for your sprint. But you can't do that if you're starting 30 riders back. And if you're on the front at 100 meters to go, you've got no wiggle room. So it's all about finding that crack in the armor and looking for your opportunity here. So that's a big, big part of it. And that's where, at this point now, this group is so large, coming up on 6K to go. The size of this group completely negates the chance of a late race solo breakaway for me, Matt. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any chance that anybody could go on a suicide move here? Because there's so much momentum in this group.
Yeah, I think it's too big a group now. Even if we lost half of these riders and we only had 30 to actually go clear on your own, I think there's a slim possibility we could see a small group going clear. But at the moment, because of the size of this group, because of the benefit of sitting in the draft, there is so much speed, and we've already been over the steepest part of this climb. They are ripping up this climb. Look at Lionel Vuillersan there, 500 watts, holding steady, beats per minute 181. Riders now dropping the featherweight power-ups just to make it that little bit easier. 10% off their weight here. Still no big splits.
Yeah, in real life, when you hear that crack of the whip at the front of the bike race, it takes another second or two before the guys around you at the back are able to respond. And that's the advantage that you have if you've got good positioning right now as we come up on 5K to go. So this is where you know the throttle is going to open up. There is going to be no quarter given from here on in. So let's start taking a look at the riders that are riding in the vanguard of the group, or the very front up here. Takaro Ikeda is there. So I have to look at that Legion of LA jersey and think that Tyler Williams and Freddie Ovett are going to have a good shot at this one here today. They certainly have, they know the name of the game at this point. This is, they've got Olympic gold medals in their DNA, as they say. And here we go. It's going to be some pressure being applied. As you can see now, it's unraveling. Freddie Ovett is up near the front. This might be that small group of attack that you've been looking at. We do know that as you round this corner, you're going to see an arch here. All right, let's go. 5K to go.
That was a Hayden Warner, I think, from Team Turbo that took the sprint over the top. Freddie Ovett not too far away. Again, he's been in the top three every single time. So it was Warner from Ovett and then P. Van Diemen also in third place there. That's the final set of KOM points on offer. One more sprint to go. Another small opportunity to try and grab some points to add towards your team total. Let's try and look at the damage. The group is now spread out. 2 or 3 seconds are this group that they're spread out for the first 20 riders. And then I'm just trying to see if it's thinned down significant. We've only lost 2 or 3 riders, so we've still got around 55 riders in this front group, just showing the depth. They are thundering down towards the pump rooms now. There is Hayden Warner. He's the rider that took the points, gulping in the air now. Baseball cap, headphones, bib tights, heart rate monitor. That was some sprint, but with 4.1 Ks to go, that was he dug very, very deep indeed. But that was pretty impressive from the American.
It was. That's what you call scraping the bottom of the barrel out there. I mean, they are high-tailing their way to the finish line. This is going to go, it's like a roller coaster ride at this point through Harrogate now. Tyler Williams is moving up. Jaden Yeager's there. Here's a name that we haven't called yet. Marcel Weiss, the very talented in real life road racer for the Bolt Racing team, is right on the front of the group right now as well. Okay, at the front now. Only heavy hitters need apply at this point as they are pinning it on this 2% grade here. They're bringing it down under 3.5K to go. This is David Talbot. Now, I would say David Talbot is absolutely a rider to keep your eye on in the yellow and green of Ceres the Pros Closet. He's got a wicked kick on him. I still look at the over 1,200 watts that Ingo Reichardt can make. If he's there in the final 5 seconds of the race, there will be a sonic boom that you hear around the world. Let's see if Ingo can put it all together. Well, right here, right now, this is it. We are locked down. This is not a drill. Big time bike racing back on the 2019 Harrogate Worlds course. And look at that. David Talbot right up on the front, Matt.
David Talbot just moving to the front, dropping 12 watts a kilo. Looks like Talbot is going to take the final points on offer. Tenselhoff and Bird. Voert's not too far behind. The Norwegian champion Mel also in the mix as well. Another little split. That little acceleration has taken this group clear. But they're going to have gone very, very deep. The toll of sprinting so late into a race is going to mean it's very, very difficult to stay clear. Tenselhoff takes the points from Bird. Voerts of Dutch Racing in third there. The group's still around 55 riders strong. 2.5 kilometres to go. That is the situation on the road in terms of points. Legion lead. Dutch Racing second. Vitus, good ride by them in third. Insured Share fourth with Turbo and Finesse Rockets. Piauto in seventh with Canyon, Bolt and Draft. 2.3 kilometres to go. And the shenanigans are starting to begin now. Riders moving up. No more opportunity to get a power up. The power that they got through that arch is the one that they will get for the finish. It's going to be fascinating, and that will determine to a degree how they take in this final sprint. And we have around 55 riders heading towards the finish, Dave.
Hey, just like in real life, Matt, a little bit of luck goes a long, long way in the sport of bike racing. So if you're already deploying it, that is not a good sign, as these riders are going to be absolutely scrapping. You try to flush your legs of as much lactic acid as you can, because here we go. Gentlemen, welcome to downtown Payne City. At 1.5K to go, you start taking some inventory up on the front, looking for the riders that are there. It's really in that second wave where you want to be, positioning yourself to use the draft as much as you can, all the way down to that final 300 meters. The sprint does flatten out just a little bit as you go into the last 150 meters or so, but you got to be there to have a chance. So this is it, Matt. Let's see
It
what
certainly
we've
is.
got. I'm looking around and none of the big names are making a move yet, keeping their powder dry as they should. Timing is going to be everything. There's Viasen, though. Viasen moving up to the front. That's the purple and blue jersey that you're looking at. One of the big favorites that we have. Okay, Matt, it is on from here on in. You cannot afford to miss a step.
They certainly can't. Well, the last power-ups is either an aero or a van or a feather power-up. What have they got? They're going to swing right past the draft house. 720 metres to go, but believe you me, this is going to be a long, drawn-out, almost a grovel to the line. But some big power-ups are going to be dropped here. Featherweights, left, right and centre. That's where you expected those on the low slopes, but Kershaw has gone clear. Very, very early move. Talbot also up in the mix as well. The road starts to flatten ever so slightly.
Well, it feels like you're sprinting through wet cement right now. It couldn't get any heavier than this, but look at this. It's Matteo Cigala. The Irishman has hit out with authority, but they're going to come up and over the top, and it looks like, oh, man, it's going to be Williams, isn't it? This is Freddie.
No,
that's now...
Ovet, it looks like Ovet just got the win. It's at half a bike length on the line there. We'll get confirmation in a minute. It was Harvard Glednes of the Callas Esports team. That was so close between Glednes and Freddie Ovet. Well, what an absolutely spectacular finish. We will wait for the official results, but that was a blanket close finish here. But we saw that disparity between the power-ups, the featherweight power-ups early on, and then we saw the aero power-ups for the final sprint there, and that, I think, really did determine the final. Well, what an absolutely wonderful finish that was. Let's have a look. It was Callas that took the win with Harvard Glednes just ahead of Freddie Ovet and the ever-present Lionel Viasan in third place. That's his third podium of season 2 so far. McGlinchey, well, a return to form from McGlinchey. Ollie Jones in 5th. Dempster in 6th there for Saris and the Pros Closet. Tyler Williams there for Legion of Los Angeles, giving them 2 in the top 10. Great riding by then. Carol Larson and Mako Verts rounding out the top 10.
Hello, Earth to PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Not seeing them up in the top 10. I think today might be the day that they don't find the top of the podium, as it looks like Canyon with 2 in the top 5. Then we'll have to dig a little bit deeper, Matt. But it looks like Canyon might have found it today as their day in Harrogate. I'm trying to read the tea leaves here because clearly Legion had a great day as well. But Canyon and Legion are going to be moving up the standing performance here in Harrogate. That is what bike racing is all about. Both the men and the women's race were absolutely incredible, Matt. This really does stand up as one of the toughest courses that we've ever seen. Here's the points as we see Harvard Glednes taking the top of the table with 40 points there. Freddie Ovet, 35 points for second. Lionel Viasen. That's every week. All 4 weeks, Lionel's gone inside the top 3, including the team time trial with his Canyon squad. Northern Irishman Christopher McGlinchey Avitas in 4th. It's Ollie Jones for 5th. Gavin Dempster in 6th for Saris the Pros Closet. Tyler Williams for Legion there in 7th. Good job by Joel Carroll today as Joel ends up 8th. Ryan Larson in 9th. And week 1 winner Michael Volts in 10th for Dutch Racing. So there's a look at our top 10 based on finish line points.
Indeed. Well, that's 2 riders for Saris in the Pros Closet, 2 for Legion in the top 10, 2 for Canyon Esports. Of course, we're going to have to drill down a little bit further to see where the other points have been scored. And there we go. Canyon Esports break the vice-like grip that PO Auto Ceramic Speed had. In fact, the PO Auto haven't finished inside the top 10. So I think we're going to see a different leaderboard. Canyon Esports take the win ahead of Legion of Los Angeles. Callas Esports in 3rd. Dutch Racing 4th. Saris and the Pros Closet in 5th. Great ride by them. A return to form for Vitus Esports in 6th with 43. Uno X Pro Cycling Team, one of their best performances with 37. They're in 7th. Finesse in 8th with 26. 9th, the World of Elite Zwifters with 22. And they're rounding out the top 10. One of the teams from last season's community divisions, that was the Zwift Warriors. Then we have Insured Draft, PO Auto in 13th. Oh,
that's incredible.
What? Well, a difficult night, yeah. And then Turbo, no pins, and then the Bolt race team. So not the night they would have wanted. That is a big surprise. But what an exciting race that was. It's all change as we get to the halfway point of season 2 of the ZRL. Let's have a little look back in a few moments at just what happened today, because that was a tough race. A big group at the finish, Dave. But again, a wonderful finish.
I'm stunned. We haven't seen anything like this in the ZRL. A complete collapse from PO Auto Ceramic Speed is going to have them fall out of the overall lead. They're going to drop significantly when you look at how the impact of scoring so few points today. So that's going to move Canyon up on top, but teams like Legion are going to make a huge step forward. I realize this is Freddie Ovitt, the Australian, the new signee to the team that has had he's the impact player of the racer of the season, no doubt. Talking about Freddie, he's already got a win, a second place, and he's taken his team from the cellar to the attic out here. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible what Legion of LA is doing. As you look back through the race, the thing that surprised me, and we're going to bring Hannah Walker back in to talk about the women's race too, but I have to say the size of this group was stunning to me. Matteo Chigala there starting the sprint, but ultimately it was a photo finish at the line there. Wow,
well,
what
there
a
we go.
day. So there you go. They've lost the lead.
There it is. Yeah, they have indeed. Canyon Esports now take the lead. You know, the 3 third places and now the win in round 4. Canyon Esports have a lead of 74 points. PO Auto Ceramic Speed drop into second at the halfway point with 67. Saris and the Pros close it only a point behind in third. Legion only a point behind them in fourth. Dutch Racing in fifth. Callas Esports with their individual win tonight, they move up to fifth with 52. Zwift Warriors still great riding by them. They're in seventh. World of Elite Zwift is in 8th. Uno X equal 9th with the Kirkmare team. Well, absolutely spectacular stuff. There is the rest of the top 20 with Aero with 8 points in 19th position. But as you said, we'll bring Hannah back in just a couple of moments' time. But what a kind of wonderful balance we have now. It is completely blown things wide open. Wonderful racing in the women's, wonderful racing in the men's. But, well, I mean, that does set things up, doesn't it, for a wonderful second half. I mean, it's so finely balanced, so close at the top.
Yeah, Hannah, I don't know if Denmark lost, the entire country lost their internet connection, but it was stunning how different the men's race was than the race that you got to call there, which really was a war of attrition. Talk to me about your thoughts on the women's race today.
Yeah, well, as we expected, a very small group going to the finish in Harrogate in comparison to the men's, where there still was a big group left at the finish. That being said, you know, it's all change in the standings overall in the series, both for the women's and the men's, and it just shows at this halfway point, Dave, that things can be changed around. It's not, all plain sailing for those teams who are leading, unless your name is Heino. But for PO Auto Ceramic Speed, you know, very surprising to see that they finished 13th today. In the women's, though, Cryo RDT, a brilliant result. They've moved up the standings, and if they can continue that form, get themselves into a podium position.
I think every other team, Matt, should look at PO Auto Ceramic Speed and say, there but for the grace of God go our team, because it could happen to anyone. Even Heino has to be ready for that terrible day at the office where the boiler explodes, whatever it might be. Well, that was their day. It goes to show you, Matt, every race matters out here.
It does. Every race matters. It's a season of 8 races, 5 points race, 3 team time trials. We're at the halfway point. They couldn't have set it up better. We couldn't have written a better script so far for the ZRL. And just to pick up on your point there, Dave, yeah, if you have one bad night, that can completely change the face of the league. So guys, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a blast as ever. We all need to go for a lie down because that was some exhilarating racing. But of course, there is more to come, because next week it is the turn of the team time trial again, the second team time trial of the series. And this one well, it's going to be an up and down roller coaster affair, because it is on the mighty Metropolitan course in New York, the Big Apple. That's going to be very, very hard indeed. And I think a real test of how these teams work together as a unit on such a rolling course. And of course, to the community division races, courtesy of the WRTL, they take place in just a couple of hours' time. And Nathan Guerra and our very own Dave Towell will be commentating on those tomorrow. And of course, make sure you do tune in to all of those Zwift community races. And of course, we've got the World of Zwift on Friday. We've got the Tour de Zwift still going on as well. There are makeup days at the end. But for now, let's have a little look at the best bits from today's racing while I bid you farewell from Yorkshire. Take care.